Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudire. Nashtaprayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. Bhagavati Ruttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistaki. Om Agnanatimirandasya Gnananjana Shalakaya. चक्षुर्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्तस्वामिनिति नामिने। नमस्ते सारस्वती देवी गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषशून्यवादि पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासंदि भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। Okay, 28 or 23. जानुद्वयं जलजलोचनया जनन्या लक्ष्माखिलस्य सुरवन्दितया विधातु पूर्वोर्निधाय करपल्लवरोचिषा यत् संलालितं हृदि विभोरभवस्य कुर्यात्. The yogi should fix in his heart the activities of Lakshmi, the goddess of fortune, who is worshipped by all demigods and is the mother of the Supreme Person Brahma. She can always be found massaging the legs and thighs of the Transcendental Lord, very carefully serving him in this way. Purport: Brahma is the appointed Lord of the universe. Because his father is Garbhodakashayi Vishnu, Lakshmi, the goddess of fortune, is automatically his mother. Lakshmi ji is worshipped by all demigods and by the inhabitants of other planets as well. Human beings are also eager to receive favor from the goddess of fortune. Lakshmi is always engaged in massaging the legs and thighs of the Supreme Person of Godhead Narayana, who is lying on the ocean of Garbha within the universe. Brahma is described here as the son of the goddess of fortune, but actually he was not born of her womb. Brahma takes his birth from the abdomen of the Lord himself. A lotus flower grows from the abdomen of Garbhodakashayi Vishnu and Brahma is born there. Therefore, Lakshmi ji's massaging the thighs of the Lord should not be taken as the behavior of an ordinary wife. The Lord is transcendental to the behavior of the ordinary male and female. The word abhavasya is very significant, for it indicates that he could produce Brahma without the assistance of the goddess of fortune. Since transcendental behavior is different from mundane behavior, it should not be taken that the Lord receives service from his wife just as a demigod or human being might receive service from his wife. It is advised here that the yogi always keep this picture in his heart. The devotee always thinks of this relationship between Lakshmi and Narayana. Therefore, he does not meditate on the mental plane as impersonalists and voidists do. Bhava means one who accepts a material body, and Abhava means one who does not accept a material body, but descends in the original spiritual body. Lord Narayana is not born of anything material. Matter is generated from matter, but he is not born of matter. Brahma is born after the creation. But since the Lord existed before the creation, the Lord has no material body. Yeah. Of course, for me, the what stood out in this verse is this carefully serving. So, two things actually. This relationship of the Lord with goddess of fortune, with Lakshmi ji, is very difficult to understand. Actually, many places it says like the Lord um, gives more favor to his devotees than he gave to Lakshmi ji. Hmm. Um, so Lakshmi is actually without any expectations from the Lord. She's all the time she's in the mood of service. Whether he reciprocates with her or not, she's not concerned. Mm. She knows that this is her eternal position is to serve the Lord, and she's carefully serving. It is carefully is very important because she's eternal consort. Um, So she can have some lenience, some familiarity with the Lord, but no. Uh, so from eternality, she is carefully serving him. Mm. So it's very, very important that we don't become too familiar with with Vaishnavas, especially Guru. We should not become very familiar. If we become familiar, we become casual. That is not the relationship between the Guru and disciple. And the mood of service should always continue. And it should be we should be very, very careful. Careful in the sense, to do it the best way possible. Mm, mm, to do it in the right way, mm, following all required standards, uh, taking up as much austerity as possible to serve. Uh, so it's very, very important mm, that we go beyond comfort zone to serve Guru and Vaishnavas. So Lakshmi ji is actually showing us this. Is very carefully serving. In fact, we also should carefully serve. Uh, we are preaching, then we should also carefully serve everybody who comes to the temple or center, considering them as guests of the Supreme Lord. So this carefully serving is very, very, it's like a very important feature, character of a Vaishnava, of a devotee. Mm, mm. We should meditate on these words, carefully serving. Now the rest of the purport is pretty straightforward. ऊरू सुपर्णभुजयोर अधिशोभमानां ओजो निधि अतसिका कुसुमावभासु व्यालम्बिपीतवरवाससि वर्तमान काञ्चीकलापपरितम्भि नितम्बबिम्बम्. Next, the yogi should fix his mind in meditation on the personality of God. Its thighs, the storehouse of all energy. The Lord's thighs are whitish blue, like the luster of the linseed flower, and appear most graceful when the Lord is carried on the shoulders of Garuda. Also, the yogi should contemplate his rounded hips, which are encircled by a girdle that rests on the exquisite yellow silk cloth that extends down to his ankles. So, again, very picturesque description of the Lord. Mm. Lord's thighs are whitish blue, like the luster of linseed flower, and appear most graceful when the Lord is carried on the shoulders of Garuda. Also, the yogi should contemplate his rounded hips, which are encircled by a girdle that rests on the exquisite yellow silk cloth that extends down to his ankles. The person who got it is the reservoir of all strength, and his strength rests on the thighs of his transcendental body. His whole body is full of opulences, all riches, all strength, all fame, all beauty, all knowledge, and all renunciation. The yogi is advised to meditate upon the transcendental form of the Lord, beginning from the soles of the feet and then gradually rising to the knees, to the thighs, and finally arriving at the face. The system of meditating on the Supreme Person of Godhead begins from his feet. The description of the transcendental form of the Lord is exactly represented in the Archa Vigraha, the statue in the temples. Generally, the lower part of the body of the statue of the Lord is covered with yellow silk. That is a Vaikuntha dress, or the dress of the Lord, the dress the Lord wears in the spiritual sky. This cloth extends down to the Lord's ankles. Thus, since the yogi has so many transcendental objectives on which to meditate, there is no reason for his meditating on something imaginary, as is the practice of the so called yogis whose objective is impersonal. See, Prabhupada is saying here, yogi has so many transcendental objectives on which to meditate. What does this mean? What does transcendental objectives mean? Anybody? Okay, so basically the detail, this is the object of meditation, right? So we just don't think that, okay, Lord just wears a yellow dhoti, but then we should know that the yellow dhoti actually extends down to the Lord's ankles. And the Archa Vigraha should exactly represent this. And the description of the transcendent form of the Lord is exactly represented in the Archa Vigraha. So those who are actually who make these forms of the Lord from various material elements should be they're actually they know the science um, of making the Lord's forms. So they're not like generally just some like some modern people who are just sculpting something out of their own imagination. No, they actually follow Shastra, and that is why we have to. If somebody is wanting to install deities, then they should have the receive the deities from some very authentic source, of and then because the person who is actually doing this service should be well informed in the Shastra, and he should be actually preparing the Lord's form based on these statements of the Shastra. So because it's very clear, the description is exactly represented in the Archa Vigraha. Mm. Which is why even in Vrindavan, for example, we see different deities and we say, okay, this exactly represents the eyes of Krishna, this exactly represents the tops of Krishna, this exactly represents the lotus feet of Krishna, like that. Because actually they are gifted, and they follow Shastra. Some are even especially gifted. Lord gives them special mercy to represent his divine form very exactly, right, in the exactly the way it is. So these things are very, very important. And when we are dressing, when we are making ornaments for the Lord, etc., it's also good that those devotees who are actually participating in these services are also understand Shastra, have read Shastra. For example, there are various scriptures which actually describe how Krishna is ornamented, how Radharani is ornamented, things like that, right? So it'll be nice if devotees know that also, then they can also try to follow those. But the important thing here is that the yogi is actually meditating on all these different transcendental objectives, meaning all these details of how there is a girdle, he has rounded hips, his thighs are whitish blue. These are the transcendental objectives. So the yogi is expected to go into the details and meditate on the details. Mm. And that is how he keeps his mind engaged in thinking about the Lord. So this is very, very nice and very important. नाभिहृदं भुवनकोशगुहोदरस्थं यत्रात्मयोनिदिशनाखिललोकपद्मं व्यूढं हरिन् मणिवृषस्तनयोरमुष्य ध्यायेद्वयं विशदहारमयूखगौरम्. The yogi should then meditate on his moon-like navel in the center of his abdomen. From his navel, which is the foundation of the entire universe, sprang the lotus stem containing all the different planetary systems. The lotus is the residence of Brahma, the first created being. In the same way, the yogi should concentrate his mind on the Lord's nipples, which resemble a pair of most exquisite emeralds and which appear whitish because of the rays of the milk white pearl necklaces adorning his chest. See, such a beautiful description. We can't just imagine something. It's so beautiful. Lord's nipples resemble a pair of most exquisite emeralds, uh, but which appear whitish. So resemble a pair of most exquisite emeralds. Emeralds are, you know, most Matajis will know. What color are emeralds? What are the color?
Green.
Green, green.
Green. Okay, and which appear whitish because of the rays of milk white pearl necklaces. The Lord is wearing milk white pearl necklaces adorning his chest, and but the exquisite emeralds appear whitish. So it's so beautiful. It's the yogi is advised next to meditate upon the navel of the Lord, which is the foundation of all material creation. Just as a child is connected to his mother by the umbilical cord, so the firstborn living creature, Brahma, by the supreme will of the Lord, is connected to the Lord by a lotus stem. In the previous verse, it was stated that the goddess of fortune, Lakshmi, who engages in massaging the legs, ankles, and thighs of the Lord, is called the mother of Brahma. But actually, Brahma is born from the abdomen of the Lord, not from the abdomen of his mother. These are inconceivable conceptions of the Lord, and one should not think materially. How can the father give birth to a child? It is explained in the Brahma Samhita that each limb of the Lord has the potency of every other limb because everything is spiritual. His parts are not conditioned. The Lord can see with his ears, material ear can hear, but cannot see. But we understand from Brahma Samhita that the Lord can also see with his ears and hear with his eyes. Any organ of his transcendental body can function as any other organ. His abdomen is the foundation of all the planetary systems. Brahma holds the post of the creator of all planetary systems, but his engineering energy is generated from the abdomen of the Lord. Any creative function in the universe always has a direct connecting link with the Lord. The necklace of pearls which decorates the upper portion of the Lord's body is also spiritual, and therefore the yogi is advised to gaze at the whitish luster of the pearls decorating his chest. So, for example, like now we know that Lord wears a pearl necklace. So, when we are dressing the Lord, we can offer a milk white pearl necklace to the Lord. Like, for example, वक्षोधिवासं वृषभस्य महाविभूते पुंसां मनोनयननिर्वृतिम् आदधानं कण्ठं च कौस्तुभमणेरधिभूषणार्थं कुर्यान्मनस्यखिललोकनमस्कृतस्य. The yogi should then meditate on the chest of the Supreme Person of Godhead, the abode of the goddess Mahalakshmi. The Lord's chest is the source of all transcendental pleasure for the mind and full satisfaction for the eyes. The yogi should then imprint on his mind the neck of the personality of Godhead, who is adored by the entire universe. The neck of the Lord serves to enhance the beauty of the Kaustuba gem, which hangs on his chest. So now we know on his chest there is a milk white pearl necklace, and also there is the Kaustuba gem. And the chest is the source of all transcendental pleasure for the mind and full satisfaction for the eyes. Now we should not look at this mundane, like we should not think, okay, I'm just looking at, you know, we should not have a mundane vision of this statement. Mm. Lord's chest is the source of transcendental pleasure for the mind, full satisfaction for the eyes. Mm. So we should look at the Lord's chest with this perspective. Mm. And then imprint on his mind the neck of the Supreme Person of Godhead. The neck serves to enhance the neck enhances the beauty of Kaustubhajam. In the Upanishads, it is said that the various energies of the Lord are working to create, destroy, and maintain. These inconceivable varieties of energy are stored in the bosom of the Lord. As people generally say, God is all powerful. That prowess is represented by Mahalakshmi, the reservoir of all energies, who is situated on the bosom of the transcendental form of the Lord. The yogi who can meditate perfectly on that spot on the transcendental form of the Lord can derive many material powers, which comprise the eight perfections of the yoga system. Okay, so there is Mahalakshmi who is present on the chest of the Lord. Right, so here Prabhupada is saying yogi who can meditate perfectly on that spot on the transcendental form of the Lord can derive many material powers, which comprise the eight perfections of the yoga system. So he can get Asta Siddhi. The yogi can get Asta Siddhi by meditating on the spot where Mahalakshmi is present on the chest of the Lord. It is stated herein that the beauty of the neck of the Lord enhances the beauty of the Kaustuba gem rather than vice versa. The gem itself becomes more beautiful because it is situated on the neck of the Lord. A yogi is therefore recommended to meditate upon the Lord's neck. The Lord's transcendental form can either be meditated upon in the mind or placed in a temple in the form of a statue and decorated in such a way that everyone can contemplate it. Temple worship is therefore meant for persons who are not so advanced that they can meditate upon the form of the Lord. There's no difference between constantly visiting the temple and directly seeing the transcendental form of the Lord. They are of equal value. So the more time we spend in front of the deities is equal to actually directly seeing the transcendental form of the Lord. The advantageous position of the yogi is that he can sit anywhere in a solitary place and meditate upon the form of the Lord. A less advanced person, however, has to go to the temple, and as long as he does not go to the temple, he is unable to see the form of the Lord, either by hearing, seeing, or meditating. The objective is the transcendental form of the Lord. There is no question of voidness or impersonalism. Okay, so this is important. See, for those who can see, mm, they can go to the temple and see the beautiful form of the Lord. Those who can't go to see can simply hear about Him, hear about the same description of the transcendental form of the Lord, and which is non-different from seeing the Lord. And those more advanced can simply meditate on what they have heard or seen. But this meditation is for advanced devotees. So it's like saying those who are not so advanced, they will have to see. Some little bit more advanced by hearing, they can see. So this is seeing by seeing, this is seeing by hearing, and this is seeing by meditating. All of this results in the same association of the Lord. The objective is the transcendental form of the Lord. There's no question of voidness or impersonalism. The Lord can bestow the blessings of transcendental pleasure upon either the visitor of the temple, meditator, or yogi, or one who hears about the Lord's transcendental form from the scriptures like Srimad Bhagavatam or Bhagavad Gita. So if we are simply reading these verses and we can experience transcendental pleasure. If we are not hearing it in a mundane way, there are 9 processes for executing devotional service, of which smaranam or meditation is one. Yogis take advantage of the process of smaranam, whereas bhakti yogis take special advantage of the process of hearing and chanting. See, we should understand that by this hearing and chanting, because directly going to the process of smaranam is very difficult. By going through the process of hearing and chanting, automatically smaranam becomes very easy. Because Krishna clearly says in Bhagavad Gita, Man manabhav mad bhakto, which means that this has to happen in the mind. So by hearing and chanting, eventually the mind has to become conducive, pure, to actually to engage in this marana. But it will be very automatic. It will be very natural. But for a yogi, he has to go through some lot of mechanical process, jugglery, to be able to meditate on the form of the Lord, and then the mind not is very rebellious. Mind is restless. It goes here and there. It's very difficult. For bhakti yogis, it's very easy, because simply by the process of hearing and chanting, automatically we will very soon come to the stage of smaranam. But we should. That is the reason why we are trying to engage the mind in the chanting process, mind in the hearing process. It's not that hearing means just simply the ear and there's no work of the mind. No, because mind is the chief sense. When the hearing happens attentively, mind is automatically engaged. Mind becomes purified. A mind can then remember what was heard, which is maranam, right? So we have to just simply remember what we heard. For example, if we remember now hmm, the description of the Lord's form here, because we've heard, then automatically smaranam will happen. Like yesterday, we were seeing the lotus feet of the Lord. Automatically, smaranam will happen. As the mind becomes more purified by the hearing and chanting process, smaranam becomes easier. And eventually, the whole process when we are chanting, all these things will automatically come to the mind. The form will come to the mind, the qualities will come to the mind, the pastimes will come to the mind, which is all smaranam. But the process is triggered through hearing and chanting. Through hearing and chanting, all this actually automatically happens. And that is the whole process. That is why here Prabhupada is saying they take special advantage of the process of hearing and chanting, because this hearing and chanting is so powerful that even it will take us to perfection. It will take us to perfection. But we should do it attentively. We should do the hearing and chanting attentively. And the first thing is hearing, because if you don't hear, how can we chant? And this chanting means glorification of the Lord. So whatever we have heard here, we can glorify to somebody else. And then we will remember that. Hmm? So hearing is the key. I was just telling some devotees, she was saying she doesn't have time, she's just able to chant. I said, like, I'm worried because if hearing stops, then chanting will stop. Chanting will become poor quality and then eventually it might just stop. Somehow we don't understand the criticality of this hearing. Mm. Hearing basically means reading Srila Prabhupada's books. It's not that we should be sitting in a class. But if we are not able to sit and read for ourselves, at least we should hear. We should hear. So hearing is very, very critical. Otherwise, we'll just, if those devotees who don't hear, they will be very lax in their bhakti. The chanting will be full of offenses, be very distracted. They don't have clear consciousness. They materially, drowned. So it results in a lot of problems. There cannot be any chanting without hearing. So hearing is very, very critical. And training happens through hearing. If we don't hear, how do we get trained? How do we understand what is right, what is wrong, what needs to be done, what should not be done? Prabhupada has written everything in his purports, but unless we read those purports and meditate on those instructions, we're not going to be trained as well. Mm. So this hearing is again very, very critical because it will take us to perfection. Mm. So which is why this is the Bhagavata Vidhi. Right? The Pancharatriki Vidhi is engaging in deity worship. For those who are not very advanced in hearing and chanting, the deity worship Pancharatrika Vidhi actually supplements. And then eventually the result is hearing and chanting becomes effective. So we should understand this. Somebody cannot say, no, no, I'm engaged in deity worship and I'm very happy doing deity worship, but I'm not interested in hearing. That means that they are doing deity worship not on the required platform. Maybe a little bit mundane, their mind. As in, they're not looking at the form of the Lord. Mm. Because if we see the Lord Acha Vigraha form, and if we don't know that he's non-different, actually it's the Lord himself present there, mm, then it's mundane. And then we don't have the right consciousness for deity worship. And if we have the right consciousness for deity worship, automatically hearing and chanting from pure devotees should become attractive to us. Mm. So this is very, very important. Any more verses there? Okay, I think we'll stop here. There's still multiple verses. Okay, I'll stop here. If there are any comments, questions. Okay, nothing, then we can stop. श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय, जगत गुरु श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। वांछा कल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्यो च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव की जय। गौर भक्तवृंद की जय। हरे कृष्ण।
Hare Krishna.